Despite the high quality digital image stabilization in most cameras these days, should you still decide you need a physical gimbal and want one that's not only comfortable to use, but can grow with you as well as cater for a range of different cameras, even smartphones, then Feiyu-Tech have you covered with the Scorp Mini 2. Marketed as an all-in-one gimbal solution, the Feiyu-Tech Scorp Mini 2 is a convertible 3-axis gimbal designed not only for video makers using mirrorless and small DSLR cameras, but also action cameras and even smartphones thanks to the included brackets and accessories. Supplied in a robust padded carry case, on first glance the gimbal itself looks a little strange, especially with this rear arm, but there's good reason for it. With a professional looking finish, the unit carries a higher quality look and feel, and although it's relatively lightweight on its own, depending on the payload attached you could be looking at a rather hefty device overall, but saying that, it certainly feels like it's built to last. What sets the Scorp series apart is the unique handle design. We have the nice, thick, comfortable standard gimbal handle alongside a second handle coming out at an angle from the rear, like a scorpion tail, hence the Scorp Mini name. At the very bottom of the main handle is a standard 1/4" 20 metal thread which can be used to attach accessories, primarily the tripod that's included within the package, providing added length for two-handed operation, which is certainly welcome with a unit such as this. Although open this out and it provides a great base for the gimbal to sit upright for the initial setup stages or for use with the AI tracking abilities, which we'll come back to shortly. Otherwise, further up we find the secondary handle, or the scorpion's tail as it were, and although it may not look it from this angle, when using the gimbal and leaning it forwards a little, the secondary handle becomes the more vertical of the two, and makes two-handed operation really comfortable. At the very top we find a 1.3-inch OLED screen which comfortably faces the operator while in a shooting position, beneath which we have the unit's main controls ergonomically placed by the operator's thumb, consisting of a multi-directional thumbstick which has a really nice range of movement, a shutter button, and a mode button for quick cycling between gimbal modes. Accompanying these on either side are functional buttons labelled F1 and F2, used for a whole host of functions depending upon the number of taps. Otherwise, further along is an FPV button for switching the gimbal in and out of FPV mode of course, as well as a multifunctional rotating dial. This, along with the button alongside, can be used to control the pan, tilt or roll motor, rather than having to use the small thumbstick on the main control panel, a very useful addition for creating some really nice movement. On the opposite side then is the unit's power button, which is well placed and completely out of the way from any accidental presses during operation, while just beneath is the trigger button that we see on most gimbals, used for different functions according to the number of taps, such as switching between selfie mode or recentering the gimbal. Above this, a single USB-C port used to charge the unit's built-in 2500 mAh battery. Like most other gimbals, this is not a removable battery, but a single 2-hour charge provides around 10 hours of usage. So that's pretty much it for buttons and controls. Some clear thought has gone into the button placement and it all works really well. Anyways, moving up, we have the main 3-axis gimbal design with the 3 arms compensating for movement across the 3 axes. Each motor comes with a dedicated lock to store the gimbal for transport, and plates allow for adjustment to balance even the biggest payloads of up to 1.2 kilos. This adjustability is particularly useful when balancing your camera once in place, be it mirrorless or action cameras, and even smartphones. Finally, up by the tilt motor are a further 2 USB-C ports, one used for communication with accessories such as a follow focus motor for instance, and a second used for camera control, or as a power output for a smartphone. More importantly, just above these is a tiny camera and status LED used for the gimbal's built-in AI tracking abilities, so no special smartphone app or external accessories needed. We'll see how this performs shortly though. From a control perspective then, the Scorp Mini 2 is designed well. The handle with that big OLED touch-enabled display and 7 dedicated buttons with a joystick control everything from power to special functions and modifiers. I particularly like the fact that the rotary dial can be assigned to each axis with a touch of their side button, or even set to control the camera's focus or zoom with the appropriate hardware, which are additional purchases. Nevertheless, you will require a certain degree of setup time to get the camera in place and ready to shoot. No tools are required as everything connects using these quick release mounts, with the only screw that needs tightening being the one that attaches the Arca Swiss plate to the bottom of the camera. I'm using an old camera here as an example, but any mirrorless or compact camera can be used, as long as it's within the payload weight limit of course. At this point, the slider mount can be attached to the tilt arm, with a lever locking it into place, which in turn provides the base for the camera plate to slide into, and again lock into position with another lever. Quick and easy, placing the camera in a portrait orientation for the likes of Instagram or TikTok should you wish to do so. For standard landscape shooting, a horizontal mount is included in the package and slides in between the tilt arm and the slider mount, providing a base for the camera to now attach onto. Granted, this is a little faffing around with plates, but once mastered it works really well as being what allows the easy mounting of all types of cameras. From here it's a matter of balancing each of the axes as much as possible in order to reduce any unnecessary stress on the motors. This involves unlocking each axis in turn and pushing and pulling the camera back and forth until it is balanced in that particular axis. Each axis arm can be slid back and forth, although I found it took a bit of pressure to slide the stiff arms into the optimum position. There's no new features to speed up the process unfortunately, but the process only takes around 5 to 10 minutes at the most, before you can get to a stage where no matter where you point the camera, it remains well balanced, and this in turn avoids adding unnecessary motor stress. Once mastered, switching cameras shouldn't take more than a few minutes, although it is important to rebalance every time a different camera is installed or an accessory added due to the change in weight. You can even use your smartphone thanks to the included clamp mount, which makes connection a breeze, complete with rotation for easier switching between portrait and landscape orientations. So with the chosen camera installed and the physical setup complete, we're ready to power the unit up by pressing on the power button. The 1.3-inch OLED touch-sensitive display is relatively bright and provides all the data you need to operate and configure the gimbal, allowing easy adjustments to gimbal speed, highlighting the current active mode, and providing some general gimbal control. It is of course touch-sensitive, so swiping and tapping gestures make it a breeze to use, as well as quick and simple to change modes and settings on the fly. So while navigating around menus is relatively intuitive, when attaching any camera to the system, the first thing you'll want to do is head across to the calibration menu to begin the tuning process. In essence, while it looks like the gimbal is going crazy here, this tunes each motor to the weight of the camera equipment, ensuring they are not stressing themselves and using extra battery power unnecessarily. The entire process takes just a few moments, after which you're ready to shoot. If you do find the screen a little too small for your liking, fortunately we have the Feiyu-Tech Scorp remote app for controlling all aspects of the gimbal too. The connection process is quick and easy, no real issues there. And once connected, I did find it was rather reliable too, allowing full gimbal control with plenty of settings to go through, all nice and simple to use, and also extra mobility by way of an on-screen joypad, which works perfectly well as access to all configurational options and settings we have on the gimbal itself, all rather intuitive and easy to use. A nice feature is the ability to move your smartphone in space, and the gimbal will follow all the same movements in unison. Although I do find this a bit of a gimmick and not really reliable enough for main video capture. Nevertheless, one of the strongest points of the Scorp Mini 2 is the sheer versatility in transforming the unit for different shooting modes. You can of course use the gimbal in a standard handheld mode, although you'll be best served by attaching the extension tripod for two-handed shooting, which is much more comfortable. For the most comfort though, I found the two-handed configuration using the rear tail end the absolute best, with the screen facing you for added information on current active modes and settings. This is how Feiyu-Tech have designed the gimbal to be used, and not only is it very comfortable, it's very versatile too, allowing greater control for those cinematic movements and seamless transitions from a low underslung mode to a higher shooting position with a single smooth sweep. By far my personal favourite configuration. By leaving the tripod extension attached, you have a base to quickly set the unit down for some active tracking or just for some rest time between shooting sessions. It truly is a joy to use. Of course, we have all the normal gimbal modes available too, locking and unlocking different axes depending upon how you wish to shoot. Thanks to all the buttons, you can quickly switch between different stabilization modes, adjust the speed, or swiftly switch over between selfie, portrait, and default modes. Each setting is never further than a tap of a button away, and once you know the UI, operating the gimbal is very easy. And let's not forget that handy side dial, which needs its own special mention. As well as tilting the camera with the thumbstick, which works perfectly fine too, you can also tilt with the large control wheel on the front left of the gimbal's body, which makes for a finer gimbal control. It's just so much more precise and refined and soon becomes second nature. Should you get in a muddle, a quick double tap of the front mounted trigger button will reset and recenter the gimbal, while a triple tap flips the camera around into selfie mode, or by pressing and holding, the system will keep all axes locked, which comes in very handy while shooting. If stabilization isn't enough, the Feiyu-Tech Scorp Mini 2 also offers pre-programmed moves, from shooting panoramas and time-lapses to crafting complex movements on the tiny display by adding waypoints and move timeframes. It's exciting to see and execute these, as the Scorp Mini 2 tells you in real time the progress of its actions. Saying that, you could have all the features in the world, but without the proper stabilization, the gimbal would be just a toy. Thankfully, the Scorp Mini 2 works exceptionally well, as long as you don't get too close to the maximum size and payload limit. Each pan, tilt and follow movement feels natural and intentional. Like other handheld stabilizers, it can't do much about the up and down motion as you walk or run, so you really need to adjust your walking and shooting style too, with softer steps for instance, but it still manages to iron out a lot of movement to give really smooth footage. With those added shooting modes, you can really pull off some impressive shots, and to be fair, I found the unit to be incredibly smooth in operation overall, especially in the underslung mode, with the ability to transition between shooting heights with the utmost of ease, a real joy to use. Thanks to the built-in AI sensor, you can make it track movements without using the app too. The sensor quickly recognized my OK hand gesture and immediately set the gimbal to tilt and pan to follow my every move. Bear in mind, this is face tracking. It doesn't track objects or other subjects too well, but nevertheless it worked really well, completely independent of any additional apps or external accessories. So in summary, the Feiyu-Tech Scorp Mini 2 is a really good gimbal. It's well priced for the budget conscious and well worth your attention if you're looking for one device that will cater for all your portable needs. The Feiyu-Tech Scorp Pro might be a better choice for heavier DSLRs, but your results would look fantastic if you keep below the payload limit. It's not the most portable gimbal when folded, but it makes up for it with ergonomics in action. So if you own a mirrorless or action camera, or even a smartphone and your budget is more limited, then the Scorp Mini 2 is well worth considering. It's feature-packed and performs really well with its built-in AI tracking, enabling you to walk and talk while the camera smoothly tilts and pans to keep you in the frame at all times. Wrap all that up together and include the various other features I've just not had time to cover in this review, and at this price point the Scorp Mini 2 is a solid choice.